Hello, I'm Jeffrey Gard, and this is The Whole Traveler, and it's our last full day of the post-extension adventure in Istanbul, and our very last day of the Viking Cruise adventure. All that fun coming up. If you're new, this is part of a video series, My First Viking Cruise, where I chronicle my adventures on the Viking Star and the cruise Ancient Mediterranean Treasures. I also include our 3-day pre-extension in Athens and our 3-day post-extension in Istanbul. Check out all the videos on my playlist and check out my website articles where I share recommendations for each day. And you can also download PDFs of the shore excursions and the Viking dailies on my website. So if you saw last week's episode, you know that today is when I'm talking about the Conrad Hotel. And my very first impression of the Conrad Hotel was that it was elegant and it harkens back to a 1920s style glamour when dressing up and being elegant meant something. You know, we don't see that today, and it's lost, unfortunately. But here, it's everywhere. The foyer was grand and decadently marbled. There were all kinds of different marbles everywhere throughout the hotel. So beautiful. The ceiling vaulted into a dome, and the paintings on the walls all seemed to be talking about a moment in Turkey's past, a grand, brilliant, and glamorous moment. It was really lovely, and what I have come to recognize about Turkey is that when they do luxury, they go big. I mean, even this hotel, which is technically not considered a luxury hotel, it's at a premium level, it would be considered posh and luxurious by American standards. The gourmet room is where we had breakfast, which was included in the package, and it was like the Athens Marriott, in that it had quite the range of breakfast items, even more than actually Athens. They had both European, American, and Turkish items to choose from. So think cereals, proteins, fruits, dairy, vegetables, eggs, fish, and on and on and on. It was really high quality, and like everything in this hotel, it was elegantly displayed. The hotel staff are also impeccable. Everyone at this hotel brought their A game, the kind of outstanding customer service you rarely see in the US these days. You know, I hate saying that, but it's true. You know, in order to have this level of customer service, you have to pay ka-ching in the US to get it. I can't tell you how impressed I was with the staff at every single level, at every single turn. Everyone was just outstanding. I just briefly popped up to the rooftop restaurant, the Summit, to catch some early morning views of Istanbul. I think it looks better when there's sunlight. You know, you can see the bridge, you can see the beautiful hills filled with buildings, and of course the mesmerizing Bosporus in its full glory. Really beautiful views, which I think would be better in the daylight. Would I stay here again? In a heartbeat. This is a very good hotel. What you might consider a downside, if there was one, is that it's similar to the Marriott Athens in that it's the location that could be potentially problematic. It's tucked away in a residential area, a good 20 to 30 minute walk to the light rail public transport system, or you'd have to take an Uber to the tourist parts of town. I personally happen to like the location because you get a taste of the non-tourist area of local Istanbul. You get a nice flavor of what it's like for the residents. Our morning excursion was walking to Dolmabahçe Palace, which is very close to the tram line and about a 25 minute walk from our hotel. Dolmabahçe is a 19th century imperial palace built in a Rococo and Baroque revival style, and it's also fused with a lot of Turkish design elements. The palace was built by the Ottoman Sultan Abdülmecid I and built between the years 1843 and 1856. I guess the Sultan was like, Topkapi Palace, it's nice and all, but it just feels small and run down. Let's start fresh. Let's build a new palace. Dolmabahçe, like Topkapi Palace, feels like a walled private city unto itself. I can't stress to you how grand and palatial and expansive the grounds here are. There's beautiful gardens and there are breathtaking views of the Bosporus. And not to mention the magnificent architecture. I mean, God, it is so beautiful. Everything here feels and looks magnificent. Unfortunately, photos and video were not allowed inside. This was all I could get from the inside until I was shut down by security. I was allowed to take photos of the photos, but not much else. What I do have to say is if you do make it here, which I do recommend, the ceremonial hall where the sultans would officially greet heads of state, primarily other top-tier royalty and prominent leaders. The ceremonial hall was the single most beautiful room I have ever been in. I cannot stress the otherworldly beauty of this room. I wish I could have photographed it, smuggled at least a single photo, but that place was on lockdown. Guards were at every point, all looking at us, ready to snatch your camera if you were caught pulling it out. There was this crystal chandelier that was as large as an SUV, and it hung from the top ceiling, which was domed, and it had to be like transported in like 50 something crates. There's audio guides throughout the palace telling you what's what. The walls of the ceremonial hall were outfitted with marble and gold leaf. It really blew me away and took luxury to a level I had never seen or ever experienced. It was a blow away moment. You will not regret it. We also had lunch at the cafe, which was right next to the harem in the palace. And honestly, that was kind of a sad affair. We should have eaten elsewhere, but it was a time saver, you know what I'm saying? You just kind of sit down, you eat something really quick, and then you get going again. The food tasted like frozen microwave warm-ups. After lunch, we went to the harem in the palace. The harem was the private residence of the royal family, and it was what you would expect. Luxurious, ornate, grand. One of the showstoppers was the room in which Turkey's first Republican president, Kemal Atatürk, died. They left it as it was in his final moments, with the clock stopping at the time of his passing. It was a beautiful tribute to the life and times of Turkey's first president. There's also, as part of the palatial grounds, there's also a painting museum, which was frankly disappointing. It was largely a demonstration of mastery of Western painting techniques. So there was a lot of still life, landscapes, all derivative, with really bland points of view. It was like Turkey was telling Europe, hey, we can also do this. And it's like, great, but it was also really boring, if I'm being honest. The Museum of Modern Art is found alongside Galataport, and we were able to wave hi to the Viking star, hey girl, who's presumably onboarding their next group of passengers. We kicked off our Viking adventure with a visit to the Modern Art Museum in Athens, so it was only fitting to end it with a visit to Istanbul's Modern Art Museum. This is a great museum if you're looking for a palate cleanser. I mean, it was nice to be in current times and to kind of flesh out all the antiquity, all the ancient palaces, all the old stuff, which I loved. But it was just nice to be back in contemporary space and enjoy some contemporary art. So this museum, there was tons of geometry, lines, play of light, and webs of string and yarn. I'm not too sure what all this is about. Actually, every time I go into a modern art museum, I have no idea what I'm looking at or no idea what's going on. But that's also the fun. I think of modern art museums almost as a playground for adults. It's what I'm looking at be? It's a tickling of the imagination, which I greatly appreciate. This is a small museum, which I also appreciated because, to be perfectly blunt, I was fried at this point. I mean, we had an epic 2-week adventure, but we were at capacity. Our plates were completely full. We were ready to go back home, sleep in our own bed, be amongst our things in our space. You know what I'm saying when you reach that point? So we headed back to the hotel for a light dinner, and afterward we packed up. We had an early departure the next morning, very early in the morning, and so we just wanted to do ourselves right and get ourselves ready and not feel rushed. One final surprise was the transfer the next day and our flight experience on Turkish Airlines. Oh my God, you do not want to miss that. It would of course mark the end of our Viking adventure. All that coming up.